Hello all, this is a short introduction to prompts and responses in ChatGPT. What is ChatGPT? It is a large language model, or LLM, trained to respond in a conversational manner, like autocomplete on steroids. This LLM was trained on items from the internet, like Reddit, the English language content from Wikipedia, blogs, social media, educational sites, patents, and much more up through September 2021. The free version of ChatGPT, shown in this demo, has no live access to the internet. Some basic vocabulary. A large language model, or LLM, is defined as an AI model that has been trained to generate text based on patterns it has learned from a large corpus of text data. Generative pre-trained transformers, usually referred to as a GPT, is a large language model that is conversational. You interact with ChatGPT's conversational nature using prompts and responses. A prompt is the input you placed into ChatGPT. A response is the output ChatGPT provides you in return. Tokens are the units which represent the characters processed. Think the letters, punctuation, or spaces you type into ChatGPT, though the correlation is not exact, but conceptually is a start to understand this. Hallucinations are text output that is factually incorrect. IEEE spectrum has a nice description. Semantically or syntactically plausible, but are in fact incorrect or nonsensical. It is very important to acknowledge that ChatGPT will hallucinate. It is trained to generate text based on an input. It is not a search tool. Though it has been trained on a massive amount of factual content, along with opinion and fiction and misinformation, it will many times not respond with factual information. It is just responding in a conversational manner with words it is trained to place in a string. ChatGPT is very good at summarizing and organizing. It is less helpful searching for information and articles and factual content. So be aware that depending on what you are trying to do, it might hallucinate and provide content which is false or misleading. Let's look at a sample prompt using the hobby of bird watching. And yes, it is possible ChatGPT will hallucinate some of the information provided. The purpose of this demo is to show the ChatGPT interface, provide a prompt, see the response, and then add more prompts to tweak the responses. This is the ChatGPT interface as of September 2023. At the top, you can see which model you are chatting with. GPT-4 is the paid model. ChatGPT provides some sample starter prompts just above the prompt input window. The prompt input sits at the bottom of the page. You start your conversation here with a prompt. Along the left, you will see various actions you can take. First is New Chat. This tells ChatGPT to forget any prompting it has already done and to start a new conversation in this session. Just below New Chat, you can see your previous prompts from this and previous sessions. Old prompts can be run or regenerated again. There is a methodology to prompting. You will find many explanations on YouTube and other places. Here's mine. Start with setting the context. In this example, I am telling ChatGPT who I am, and then I will tell it who it is. ChatGPT then responds. Please note, responses are very fast. I have slowed the responses down in this video, but if you find it too fast, just pause the video as needed to read what is said in the response. Notice that it is providing me with a long response even when I simply set the context. Is this information correct? Possibly. Remember, it is creating strings of text and sentences based on the text it was trained on from the web, but it might also hallucinate facts. So I have set the context. Now I will give it a task to help me get started with bird watching. In this example, I am asking it to make a list. We can see from its first response, it likes to make lists. My question was rather broad, asking for visual characteristics. ChatGPT is breaking down the types of characteristics like size, color, beak, and more for each bird I included in the prompt. It also provides a summary, which I had not asked for, but which could be helpful. The list is nice, but it is a lot of text. It might be easier to see the differences if I ask for this information in a table. ChatGPT loves to make tables. Next, I ask it to take this information and help me with a PowerPoint. Notice I give no extra directions, and it writes a PowerPoint outline with slide numbers, image suggestions, titles, bullet points. But notice that in some places, it is telling me to highlight the key differences without listing the differences. So I re-prompt asking ChatGPT to include differences in the outline. When re-prompting, make sure to tell it what generated content it should work with and what the new action is. Once the response is to your liking, go back to the top of the response and click on the clipboard to copy the text. Then paste it into a word processor like Google Docs or Word or any one you prefer to use. Let's apply a prompt to a work task. First, we tell ChatGPT to erase our most current chat from the response window. This will make sure it does not apply our previous prompts. Then we set the context and tell ChatGPT to act as a coach for writing and setting a good meeting agenda. The response immediately is advice on how to write and set a meeting agenda. This is general advice. Now we try to adapt this advice to a specific need. Remember to tell ChatGPT which response you want it to adapt and what extra info you want it to include. Please note that in practice, in an actual workplace, or even within your own personal projects, you should never input specific personal, company, or sensitive information into ChatGPT or similar products. ChatGPT is a third-party system you are using for free, and ChatGPT reserves the right to review prompts for training purposes. In this example, I'm asking it to use its meeting agenda recommendations for a meeting about cybersecurity and two-factor authentication. I also specify include definitions. A meeting agenda is generated, which includes an overview, bullet points, and recommended presenting times for each point. Even though I asked for definitions, it instead is telling me to add a definition. This is an example of where the prompt might have some ambiguity. I might want to regenerate this with a clearer and more specific task. I will do a regeneration, but this time I ask it to change the voice or way it describes two-factor authentication. This is a method to make content easier to understand for a specific audience, which might be new to an idea. You can also make content more sophisticated for an experienced audience. I then ask ChatGPT to create a PowerPoint for this meeting. I ask it to include suggestions of corporate images for the slideshow. Note it will only make text recommendations as it is unable to generate images. There are other AI products available which will generate images. I see I now need speaker notes, so I regenerate the response with this additional request. The speaker notes suggested are very brief, but they can jumpstart my thinking about what I want to communicate with each slide. Using ChatGPT, you can generate text, create lists, make tables, shape outlines, and much more. Shaping a prompt to tell the product the context, the task, the form of the output, such as a list or a table or an outline, and then you keep tweaking the prompt. If prompt threads get too long, you may see ChatGPT lose its place or its train of thought. Just start a new chat. This has been a very basic overview of ChatGPT and getting started with prompts. Try it out and see what you can get the system to do.